Hey everyone, welcome back to GovConHacks Live. I am Ashley Dool. I am here with Natasha Velez, and we have a special guest joining us this evening. Please welcome Sara Cinotti. Sara, tell us a little bit about your company and what it is you do before we dive into our topic.
I am a proposal manager. I have been working on mainly federal proposals for several years. I do state and local, but I hate them. So I try not to have to do them, although I've been doing a lot of them lately. So I really just help people understand what it is the RFP is asking for or the RFI, and respond.
Amazing.
Awesome. So she's going to lead our conversation, guys, on preparing government proposals one-on-one. So I have enabled screen sharing, and is there anything before we dive in that the audience should know before they start preparing their proposal?
I thought you were going to say should know, like in general, and I was going to say like they should be very appreciative to you two ladies because you're very helpful. You answer questions, you provide a really wonderful service, and I just really appreciate what you all do for the community because I feel like there's a lot of people out there trying to make money off of people, and I feel like you two really help, and that's sort of what attracted me. I don't I don't come on this show to promote my business. I probably won't even put it out there because I'm just genuinely trying to help people because I see them in your groups like, how do I do this? Where do I start with that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to help so badly because it's really not that hard. It's really, once you kind of step through these proposals, you'll see like, no, they're not always exactly the same, but you'll start to see patterns where you're like, okay, I know this is sort of like this, and so it needs to go over there. So just to get started, I wanted to tell you that I went on to SAM today and I just found a random RFP and it's closed. And we're going to just kind of walk through it the way I would walk through it as a proposal manager, just so that you all can sort of see, how do a sort of seasoned veteran look at these proposals. Let's start off with the actual RFP, which I want to remember I'm on page 12, but I just downloaded this off of SAM. In fact, if you want, we can even go look at where I got it off of SAM. It's just a tier 1, tier 2 IT support services. It's been canceled, so I thought this was a good one to go through. So the first thing that I do, I really don't even look at this stuff. Maybe I should, but I don't. I go straight to the instructions, and those are usually, I say usually because it's not always, but almost always they're in section L. And that's where I start, and I'm just getting a brief overview. Okay, I'm going to be handing in 2 volumes when this is said and done. That doesn't mean that's all I'm going to be handing in. I could be handing in an Excel spreadsheet for my pricing, but I know at the very least I'm handing in these 2 things, okay? And I can see my page limit, and I can understand that I have to explain. So the technical approach is where you're explaining what you're doing. I know that I have 10 pages to do that. And so for some people, that's like, oh my God, 10 pages, how am I going to fill that up? Other people are like, 10 pages, oh my God, I need at least 30. Right. So, I mean, everybody looks at this kind of differently. But then this is when it really gets into the meat and potatoes of this is exactly what I want to see in your cover letter, in your executive summary. So this is where I get into my super OCD anal retentive proposal manager. So this is a proposal shell, and I'm happy to share this with whomever, and you can put your company logo and your company information, and you can turn this into your company shell. I start putting in like the name of the proposal, and I would put, technical volume here. And then I like to put all that information here again in my header, so it repeats on every page. I like to put my company logo here. So again, it repeats on every page. I like to put the due date. This is just like to, none of this is have to. I put the page number that is for any like tables of contents or any of that stuff. I like to do that in Roman numerals. Doesn't matter. Then I have my heading 1, and I have them all built into my styles. So when I use my shell and I copy it every single time my heading and everything is the exact same, which not only does that help with branding your company, but it really just saves you so much time in terms of every single time you don't need to build out the headers the way you want them to look. And I even build out the table the way I want it to look. So every single time it's branded, it's my colors, it's the way I want it to look. So then I would go in, I'm not going to do this whole proposal, don't worry. I'm just going to do like 1 or 2 just to give you an idea. But I literally copy everything. I go into the proposal, I paste it without any styles. And yeah, you're going to have to mess with this sort of thing. And some people will convert it to, export it to Word because it gets rid of that stuff. That's really just a personal preference. And then I start really working on my template. And some people will refer to templates kind of interchangeably. I call this, before we put anything into it, a shell. And then when I build out what the RFP is asking for, I call that a template. Because you'll want to start off with your template and then save it again as like your pink. That way, if anything goes haywire, which it may, you can go back to your template without having to like undo.
Devil's advocate, we got a lot of new people here.
Okay.
Your pink. Can you explain what you mean by your pink?
Went straight to the color system.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's my OCD
to large businesses.
Can you tell I've been Shipley trained?
Yes, we can.
So
Yes.
The colors come from the Shipley management, and APMP uses the Shipley process. So I'm certified through APMP. They use the same concept. So I believe it may start at blue, and that may be before the draft even, or when it's just a draft RFP. And that's when you're solutioning and that sort of thing, but it's still very like squishy because you don't have the parameters yet. Then when it comes out as an actual final RFP and you start working, you're in what's called a pink. And to me, pink is all about being in compliance. So I don't care how ugly it looks. I don't care how badly the sentences are written. I don't care about anything. I don't care about colors. I don't care if you like today we were reviewing, we had a pink team. Somebody had an org chart that they wrote in pencil. No problem. The important part is we have the org chart, because I can then go into PowerPoint and make it look pretty, but I can't do that if I don't have the information. So getting all the information where it belongs, and also making sure that it makes sense. So if you're in management volume and you're saying, we're going to manage this by Ashley's going to tell Natasha what to do. And then when I'm in technical, I start saying, Natasha's going to tell Ashley what to do. That's obviously a major problem, because now I have 2 sections that are coming from me that don't make any sense. They're saying the exact opposite. So in pink, that's when you're really hammering out all of those details. So you don't really care about how pretty it is, how well written it is. You want to make sure, A, you're in compliance, and B, your solution is completely thought out. You've thought it through from how you're going to manage it, to how you're going to price it, to how you're going to actually execute it. So that's pink. And then when you move on to red, that's when I think they say that at the end of red, technically you should be able to hand it in a pinch. I've never been in that situation, but you certainly want, for me, pink to red is more about going from compliance to compelling. So now we're, when you're in pink, you've answered all of the questions. When you're in red, you're saying, okay, I've told you everything you wanted to hear, but now I'm going to tell you why me. Why should you pick my company? Where we have a really interesting solution that no one has ever thought of. Our solution is cheaper. Our solution, over time can evolve to meet your requirements that also evolve. That's sort of the stuff you're hitting on in red that really makes your proposal pop, to say, this is why you should pick us. And that's when you're doing things like your call out boxes and your, your graphics and that sort of thing. And I don't want to get too heavy into the colors because believe me, I get it. A lot of people only have
We don't
time
need to know
yeah,
all the colors,
right.
but it's important for them to know that each
Because they're gonna hear
color,
it.
yeah, right. Each color represents a phase
Mhm.
in the proposal process according to the Shipley
Mhm.
method. So Google it. There's a lot of good stuff online, a lot of images and graphs that show and break down each color. You guys can do
Yeah.
that on your own time. But I did think that was important because you threw
Yeah,
that pink in
sorry.
there, and
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, and
that's
I
okay.
also want to push this. I've seen a couple of people out there putting out proposal writing courses, and I just want everyone to be very conscientious about that. There's a way that you can do it, in the most nicest way, half-assing it. And there is a professional right way to do it, right? And understand that anything worth doing, especially for your own business, is worth doing the right way because it's your business. So what's really nice about this area has formatting. She's already set the formatting for you. All those headings, all those sections are going to now populate into your table of contents. So not only do you have, it's so important just to even have the formatting. So this is just beautiful in general. So
This
thank
is
you.
beautiful. And if you look at the level of detail, I know Sarah said earlier, well, you don't really have to do that. Well, I'm going to firmly disagree because the way she has her header set up, if
You do.
I were a contracting officer receiving a proposal of that quality, I'm going to know immediately by looking at it
Mhm.
that this person knows what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the consistency over time, because a lot of you, if you've just registered in SAM and you're already bidding, um, this is often the first impression that the government's going to have of your business.
Yes.
So if you're a government reviewer and you're evaluating proposals and you get three from the same company that are absolute crap, you're going to remember that because you're a human. So let's
Yeah.
not forget human. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll get off my
No, no,
soapbox. Go
no.
ahead and get back
Please.
to your
You
show.
do. I appreciate the extra added bonuses. So I would literally just put my cursor in front of transmittal cover letter and I would hit heading 1 and it would automatically make that heading 1. Now, obviously, I don't need this, so I'm just going to delete that. And then automatically it went from 2 to 1. It's all automatic. You don't have to go through and screw around with the numbering and cry yourself to sleep because you're like, why won't B pop up? B is next. I mean, I've had that happen.
I've had that.
Yeah. So this is something that I do, and this really is something when I say you don't have to do this, really, this is something that I do that you do not have to do. So I built these into my shell. So when I have the instructions, I hit up here, it says proposal instruction. And then I know that anything in red with red font is proposal instruction. And I have blue for evaluation, green for PWS, and orange for author guidance. And you don't have to commit those to memory. They're all built into the shell with their name. And if you're writing and you're like, but I just want to know my page count, no problem. Turn off the paragraph formatting. They go away. I don't know why this one didn't go away. I'll have to fix that. But the point is, I do that because although I am a big fan of compliance matrices and I do build those, I can't go back and forth and look back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
That is very true.
I have to have all my poop in one sock. Everything that I need in that section, it's got to be in that section. I can't. And then when I'm looking at the compliance matrix, I can't be like, oh, wait, was I supposed to put that in that section? I need to know that as I'm building it, this goes here. And that way, as I'm writing, I can literally say like, okay, I've included my dones in 10. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to strike that because I've written it. I get down to that level of detail because I want to make sure I'm in compliance. And that's really what I'm doing for pink.
I do think that that's actually way better than a compliance matrix. Like just
I
having the
agree.
outline because it's like easier because then you just create it too. And you're going back and forth. It's really annoying. I think the outline itself, if you put all the requirements based on section L in there and have it kind of all formatted, I don't think you really need a matrix at that point.
I
That's what
agree
I
with
was
you.
thinking. I was going to ask that. I'm not the proposal expert around here. So would I even need a matrix if I did this?
Well, okay, so let me say one thing. So as I was thinking about what I was going to say about
Or a
this,
bid, no bid, maybe.
well, I had, okay, so the woman who taught me how to do proposals, like really taught me how to do proposals, she never did a compliance matrix. And when I met her, I was like, oh my gosh, you don't do a compliance matrix? And she's like, not really. And I was like, oh, she killed it. That woman won stuff left, right, and center. I've never seen anybody win so much in my life. I had another boss who was like live and die by compliance matrices, and I never seen anybody lose so much in my life. So, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that you have to find what works for you.
Yeah.
And although I don't really rely on my compliance matrix, I don't know how difficult it is for me to get to it, but I have something called a proposal playbook,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a tab in there for compliance matrices, but what I have that I think is probably more useful is my production outline. Because what I was thinking is when you guys were saying, like, oh, you don't need a compliance matrix, you're right, you probably don't, but there are always going to be pieces that are like, this needs a signature that maybe I don't have in the template. But if you have it in the production outline, or just some list where you're sort of like checking things off as you're handing it
Yeah.
in, and you're like, make sure this has a signature, make sure this is in, because sometimes they ask for it in Word and not PDF. If you can just make yourself notes to be like, when we're finishing this, I need to make sure that these are
Or
all the
that
things that,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
usually tend to like take the picture of the document and I put it in the Word. So I
okay,
keep it within the outline so I don't miss anything.
okay,
We've completely like nixed the matrix unless we want to do a bid, no bid review.
okay,
Like internally, if I'm bidding on something for my own company, I'll go through and decide if I want to go after it or not. But with clients, most of the time they're like, I want to go after this. And
mhm,
then you're like, are you
You're not
sure?
really involved in the bid, no bid decision. They want to
They're like,
bid.
I want to do it. And I'm like, cool, just based on like the title, right? So
yeah,
that's the opportunity to really say, can you?
right,
But over time, as you get used to your company and what you qualify for, and you know how to like look at a solicitation within 5 seconds and know if you qualify or not, then you can kind of like nix your matrix and just focus
Yeah.
on an outline.
yeah.
It usually sucks if you do an outline and then you realize you don't qualify and you did all that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I've had that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot. They're so eager to just start writing their proposal
Yes,
that they
Mhm.
don't set up the shell or the template, or they just start putting words on paper and it's all out of order and everything's all, yeah.
And I really like here how she goes from one section of the solicitation of the requirements to then inputting that in the proposal. I think what's really important about this is guiding the contracting officer, the person that's going to read this,
Mhm.
making life easier for them. So if they know that
Yes.
section one is this information and this is what I requested, section one on the proposal is the information that I asked for, and that the two are like in tandem, so that you don't have the formatting is set up that way so that you don't have to like look for that information to see if you're compliant or not.
yes, I agree. And then sometimes, because I probably have some problems, I take it a little step further and I'll say, okay, this is L1, and they don't have any other numbering. So unfortunately, I would probably just have to call this whole thing L1. But some proposals will be like L1.1, and then it'll be L1, point one, 1A. And then I'll put that in my header, like, RFP L1.1, like that, because then when you go up to the table of contents, it creates almost like
There you go. Yep.
like a
Not
roadmap, a relationship,
yeah,
if you
yeah,
will. That's
where they can
awesome.
say like, okay, in my meaning it's the contracting officer talking. In my document, I asked for an L11. I asked for a transmittal cover letter. He doesn't even have to read. He can just look at the header and be like, okay, well, this is it because it has the reference number in it. Now,
Mhm.
this one I wouldn't recommend doing that for because they didn't number it, so it doesn't really serve you. But in ones where they've really numbered it and they've gotten down to like little a and then big
Yep.
case A, like I would keep that pattern and put that in your header because it creates, and also it's a checklist for you as you're going through. You can be like, yep, I said that, I said that, I said that. Um, so then your headers just kind of form naturally based on what they're asking for. And then you highlight your instructions. And then you literally just start, once your shell is built, or once your template is built from your shell, you literally can just start going through and knocking these things off. And you can start thinking like, for me, this cover letter is probably something standard that I've written 5,000 times. If it isn't, no sweat. Go to Chat GPT, copy this, and be like, can you give me like a generic response to this? And it will give you a generic response. You could paste it in here, and then you work on it and you start making it more personalized, and you start putting in your, you're always writing a proposal response in the back of your head. The flashing lights are why us? Why us? Why would they pick us? And so you're always writing things from that point of view. So when you're writing the cover letter, you're thinking, you know, why would you pick us over someone else? And you're telling that in, it depends on how much space they give you. Sometimes for a cover letter, it's more like a page, a half a page. You may want to keep it really generic. We are known in your agency. We have a ton of past performance. We're badged at your agency. We're able to start on day one. We have all the clearances. We know all the vendors, like all of these things are just sort of like it. You're always helping the customer feel like they're eliminating risk. And the more you can say, we're a sure thing, we're not a risky bet, pick us, the better your proposal will be. So anywho, then I go through and I look for the evaluation criteria, and I stick that in there. And any PWS items, there's usually no PWS items in any of these two sections. It's not usually until the technical.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's just making sure you've got everything where it belongs, and then you just start responding to it. And that is really all you're doing in pink, is making sure that you've responded to everything. You don't really get fancy until you get to your next draft. And although I'm using these colors and I'm saying like, don't worry about the colors, maybe, instead of thinking of it in terms of the colors, think of it in terms of like drafts and how you refine it. So at first, you're just trying to make sure you're getting all the requirements in there. Then you're trying to make sure that you're really selling yourself. And then the last maybe go around is, let's make it, all the commas in the right place, all the periods, everything is nice, everything looks good. Maybe those three phases kind of help you break it down. Because I see sometimes people will go through in a pink and they'll just get themselves so worked up trying to get it to perfection. And I'm like, no. Right now, we just need to get the actual answer down. Then we can refine it. So I do think that it helps to sort of phase yourself into a winning response.
Yes.
Might add, I totally agree with you, but I might add, there's nothing stopping anybody from going to Sam, finding something inactive that maybe they want to win again next year, and practice, right?
Mhm.
Take the shell, practice like you saw Sarah do here on screen share, and figure out which way works best for you. Why wait until you have a deadline to do the thing, right?
Yeah.
If you kind of get in the flow and in the groove and in the process of even just setting up your document quicker, you're gonna be amazed at how much time that you save. And I love using the color scheme opposed to the compliance matrix, you're shaving literally hours off of your process just by doing that. Very
I
nice.
agree. And you will refine your own shell as you go. So like as an example, I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't know that I really like the way that that reads or looks. So I might come through and just call this past performance and put section 3 in parentheses. Nobody really cares. It's not like the contracting officer is like, well, now I'm not going to give it to you because you did that. Nobody cares about that.
Right.
That's just a happy to glad type decision. But I'm just saying I didn't start off making that decision. I started off with just sort of like the basic skeleton. I was like, I need to just get the stuff in there that they asked me to put in there. Then you can go through and start making it sort of more finessed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that don't go into it thinking you have to do it all in one shot. Think of it very much in terms of phases of let's get the answer in there. Let's work on making the answer amazing. Let's work on making it pretty. You know, I would sort of think of it in those 3 phases.
I would agree. And I think it's just easier to process that way. So, along with thinking of those 3 phases of those different drafts, it's also the breaking of the partitions of like past performance. You can focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can focus on your technical approach and your staffing. And so take your time, give yourself enough time to go through those drafts. So if the proposal's due in 2 days, maybe that's not the one, especially if it's your first proposal, right? Me, I can write a proposal overnight, but you not so much, not yet, right, guys? So you want to give yourself enough time, and to, Ashley's point, maybe practice on one that you're not going to bid on just to give yourself some experience. And the questions that will come to you as you're putting this together, you can start answering now versus at the last minute when you're writing a proposal that you actually want to win very badly. So yes, I think that's a great idea, but this is a really good show. Thank you for this.
Thank you. And I just want to say a couple of other things. So I work with teams. So I have writers and reviewers and all, and I understand we're probably not talking to that audience, but this may be helpful even if it's just you talking to your favorite teammate, you. But you may want to do things like highlight stuff as you're reading it to say like, okay, I need to make sure I have 3 examples. Oh, I got to get 3 client references. And then even sometimes I'll do something where I'll go in and leave myself a comment like, ask John if we can use his POC, and then it's all of your stuff is contained into one document where you can really go in here and look at it and say, okay, I have everything I need in this one document. I hate looking at 42 different documents to try and, like, I had one boss and he had like all these different Excel spreadsheets, and that's where I got the proposal playbook where I was like, I don't understand why you don't have all of these in one Excel workbook. Why are we opening up like 32 different spreadsheets? So the fact that I could get him down to this was amazing. But even this, I sort of felt like, I don't really know that, this is necessary. I mean, I think that, as you, again, may not be the audience that we're talking to, but as you get bigger and you start thinking about things like win themes and ghosting the competition, which I understand that's a whole nother ball of wax, but you could start to put that kind of stuff in here and create a style guide that's for that, or just a call out box that says, focus here on the fact that we've been in this agency for 20 years and we're badged and we have all the clearances, and you know what I mean? Like, you can start to leave yourself notes as you're reading so that as you start to write, you're really hitting these points.